The World Bank estimates that by 2050 there's going to be 1.3 billion people at risk and $158 trillion worth of assets at risk due to climate change. And it's not to say that that isn't a staggering number. 1.3 billion people, that's a lot. Now, if the World Bank, which is not necessarily an environmentalist group, can release numbers like that, then we're looking at climate change as a real global and universal sort of factor in terms of the well-being of many people and many structures and businesses around the world. So with that being said, I don't want to come off as a bit of a hypocrite or telling people what should and shouldn't be done. But I do believe that change, even in light of real everyday sort of connections with climate change, which are lacking, because people don't necessarily feel climate change as it happens. On a day-to-day basis, it feels. To tell you the truth, I'm enjoying the warm weather. I don't necessarily feel that the weather is all that dramatic, and the winters we've had are pretty mild. So there's, in terms of a personal experience, like there's no for most of us, there's no crazy understanding of climate change and no immediate sort of effects. The fires that happened in Fort McMurray, like those were sort of the indirect product of climate change, and I'm sure those 88,000 people felt it. I think there was some dancing around by the Liberal government in terms of what actually caused the fires. Climate change would have been, in fact, is a factor, and Fort McMurray is sort of a hub for the oil industry. So there's some dancing around. It's like victim blaming almost. But I don't think that people should necessarily see it that way. They should look at the facts, and they should just understand, in whatever way they can, that climate change is responsible for a lot of severe weather events. Now, that being said, and going back to what my original thought was before I kind of interrupted myself, I used to live in a higher bracket of income, and by experience, and I'm not probably the best example of someone who can manage money, but when I had more money, I spent more, and I don't think it's unruly or out of the way to say that most people who have more money, and the more money they get, they spend more, whether it be in an investment or products or consumer products or whatever it is. People spend more when they have more money. Now that doesn't mean they just spend more money and that's where it ends. You're talking about consumerism, so you're talking about more waste being created, more emissions being created, things along those lines. So I was knocked down into a lower income bracket. I lost my job, etc., and I've found that I've had to make a lot of lifestyle changes. I still buy things, obviously, but way less than I used to, and in the process of being knocked down to a lower income bracket, I've severely reduced my carbon footprint. So I'm not trying to be hypocritical by saying that, wealthier people just need to spend less and buy less things and spend more time on sustainable energy. I'm saying it's a lifestyle that you get used to, and it just happens almost naturally. So with that being said, I think there needs to be a top-down sort of approach to climate change mitigating factors, and I think that the government plays a huge role in that. I think things like sustainable energy, sustainable farming methods, sustainable mining, as sustainable as it can be, like mining processes, etc., etc. Or forestry, things like that. They need to be top down, and there needs to be some sort of top down push for people to adjust their personal behaviors in terms of consumption. And I also believe that on a personal level, people need to make changes to affect change when it comes to severe weather, climate, global warming, climate change. So I think it needs to happen on both ends, and I don't see either one being all that effective on its own. So I welcome the new climate change plan from the government of Ontario. I have less assets to worry about in terms of those changes, but at the same time, I've been knocked down to a lower income bracket, and my life isn't over. By 2050, I'm probably not going to be. Hopefully, I'm probably not going to be dead due to climate change. So, that's my take on that. Talk to you later. Bye.